Welcome to Moments with Marianne. Allow me to interrupt your train of thought with something that may be one of the most interesting things you hear today. This is Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest Christina-vircillo-bresson. And she's here today to share with us the new award-winning film, The Way of Miracles. So many of you probably have seen Christina's work and never knew it. She's been in production, filmmaking, and visual storytelling for over 25 years. In 2006, she launched her own production company in New York City, 31 Creative. Her company's groundbreaking work has won industry recognition, including Promax, BDA, Telly, and Emmy Awards. Her company's high-profile client list includes major networks and media brands, including Nickelodeon, MTV, VH1, Food Network, NBC, ESPN, and Scientific American. So let's welcome to the show director, writer, and executive producer, Christina-vircillo-bresson.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your film. Tell us, what was it like when you were younger? Was filming something that you always had on your mind?
No, definitely not. I definitely wanted to be more of a scientist when I was younger. I think I was just born a very curious child, and my favorite question was why. And I think I probably drove my mom a little crazy with that. She always says I should have been an only child because I just asked so many questions and I was one of four. So she had her hands full with me, but I definitely was more interested in nature and plants and insects. And I wanted to be a scientist, not a filmmaker.
Well, that's pretty interesting. And so what had you pivot to filmmaking? How did you even get into that as a career?
So my focus became in the arts. Apparently I was artistic, although I wasn't really convinced of that, but that's just something that people said to me. So I ended up going to art school. I definitely had an eye for beauty and certain aesthetic. So I studied film and video and design. It was a fine arts degree, but I studied multimedia because I was interested in storytelling. I went to Mason Gross School of the Arts at Rutgers, and I had some incredible professors. And I really learned, though, critical thinking. I learned how to deconstruct, and that I absolutely loved. Deconstructing, social constructs and getting to the root of human experience. And I remember wanting to share and communicate things I had discovered and, things about life, the human condition through the art of storytelling, basically.
Well, it's interesting because it really is an art. Not everyone can do it, and especially do it well like you have. So why don't you share with us what your first experience in production was? What was that like?
So that would have been a lot, like 20 plus years ago. And I'm sure it stressed me out because anything that involved live production with talent, specifically if it involved sound. I did a lot of production in New York City. So there's lots of people involved. There's lots of timing to get right. And, I remember having productions where you finally getting the delivery you want. And then the sound engineer raises his hand and they can hear a jackhammer or an ambulance or something. New York City sounds. So I'm sure I found, in the early years, production to be quite stressful. Large productions. I think small productions, is really where the magic happens. That's really where you can sculpt and create. So, I think I just prefer smaller productions to large ones. I think it still stresses me out.
I think it stresses everybody out, right?
Yes.
Well, what are some of the productions you worked on? Because I know you've got just this range that you've been involved in.
Yeah, so I had my production company since 2006, and I had been working for another studio, and we basically rolled that creative department into its own company. And so I originally co-owned it with a partner, and a year in, he asked me to buy him out. So I did. And that's how I ended up with my own production company in New York City. And I had clients already from the previous production company. So that was a nice transition. But I worked with a lot of big media brands, Paramount, Viacom, CBS Properties, MTV, Nickelodeon. They were so much fun to work with, specifically MTV people. I made so many friends over the years. Worked with ESPN, NBA, at the NFL. Scientific American was a huge. That was one of my favorite clients because, again, I love science, and so I also worked with commercial clients and ad agencies, but we made a lot of commercials, movie trailers, small shows. We did work on a few documentaries over the years, but it was primarily promos and movie trailers and commercial work, small, shorter form. And I had an incredible career. I enjoyed it very much, but it was not at all like making a film, which is The Way of Miracles is my first film on my own. So that was a totally different experience, an incredible one.
Oh my goodness. It's such a great experience too. I mean, we all love what came forward from that. And I understand that your work has actually garnered some really noted awards too.
Yeah, I was never really into the awards so much, but I've won over the years, an Emmy Award for, I think it was a teaser for the Olympics, and lots of BDA Promex awards, things specific to my industry, Webby, Telly Awards. And it really feels nice to have industry recognition, but, I'm more interested in transforming humanity. So it's nice to have awards, but it's also nice to do important work. I think that's more fulfilling for me.
Well, I think it's great that you're recognized for the level of work that you do, because a lot of times, especially women in film, it seems that they are not really getting recognized in the way that they should. And I know that we've talked about this before. I mean, I consider you one of my dear friends. How was it for you being a woman in film?
So being a woman in this industry is there are not a lot of women in the industry. So it does, I think you really do have to seek out mentorship if that's what you need, because it's not like you can just look so easily for what to do. You kind of, a lot of women are just pioneering this instinctively, just how to move through this space. So I guess it does feel very much, you definitely feel more like a pioneer in the space. You're making your own way. And, but I didn't think about it too much, just did what was right in front of me, one foot in front of the other, what I thought was needed, and so that's how I kind of guide my career, basically. But, whatever I think is needed, I just do it. Yeah.
Well, that's probably a really wise way to go about that. And I'm sure for a lot of young women, they look at this and consider you a role model, because my goodness, look at all the things that you've been able to accomplish with the work that you've done.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't thought about it too much, but if I can be a role model for someone, or if anyone, wants to reach out for mentorship, I mean, that definitely there aren't a lot of women out there for that. So you kind of have to seek it out for sure.
So I know you mentioned that The Way of Miracles was your first feature film. Mm-hmm. What really had you dive into that and be interested in a spiritual film?
Well, so from the time I can remember, from birth, I was definitely I was drawn to the mysterious or the mystical or the unknown. I was brought up in a very religious household, Catholic household. And, I was told we come from heaven and that's come from God. And I remember, being young and just asking, my dad tells this story anyway, that I was like 3 years old and I was like, why are we here? What's the point of us being here? And, if we came from heaven, can't we just go back there now? What's the point of all of this? So I think I just was always drawn to, um, why are we here? What's the point of this? Who are we? What, I was drawn to these things. Maybe I was a little philosopher. Um, and I don't think I was really satisfied with the answers I was given, because I, just ended up studying religions and spirituality and ancient civilizations. And I just really wanted to know and find, where are the clues? And I became like a little detective. So I was drawn to, our deeper existence, and probably the underlying nature of reality and beingness from the time that I was from the time I can remember. So making a film about in this subject matter, this is just a very natural thing, and I'm so happy I had the opportunity to do it. So I would just say, from birth, I was just born with, bit by the spiritual bug.
Well, I can see that. My goodness, you're, one of the most amazing people I know. And it's interesting because you really have this very deep curiosity about consciousness and understanding about consciousness. I understand that you're friends with some of the top people in the consciousness world. Mm-hmm. How did you become friends with them and, even meet them? And now you work with some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the early 90s, I picked up a book at the airport, I believe, and it was called Quantum Healing by Dr. Deepak Chopra. And I can tell you that was the first time I was like, yes, like this is it. This is the stuff I've been looking for. And it just completely resonated with me. And I became an avid reader of Deepak. I think he has since re-released that book, updated it with new scientific discoveries. So I started going to conferences in this space. At the time, Deepak had one called an Alliance for a New Humanity, which later became Sages and Scientists. But anyway, I started to go to these events and meet like-minded people. And that's actually when I met Deepak the first time. And we started talking, and we started working together in New York, creating conscious content together, little shorts, animations, videos on, like what is consciousness, what is love, different pieces together. And that was really the space I wanted to create in, and meeting people that dedicated their lives to the convergence of science and spirituality, and uncovering deeper truths and the conscious evolution of humanity. So even though I wasn't a scientist or a sage, I could still tell these fascinating stories, which were closer to real reality than anything else I had worked on. Meeting Shamini, her work is all about understanding the biofield, which carries information about our health. And that's the space that Mark taps into. Beverly Rubik is actually the scientist, I think, that coined the term biofield. Paul Mills, professor at UC San Diego, has conducted studies on the effects of gratitude on our physical health and its effects on our inflammatory biomarkers, and along with other Ayurvedic practices. Roland McCready, who's in the film, from Heart Math Institute, dedicates his studies to electromagnetic field of the heart and the information in that space, and opening that space to access higher dimensions like our intuition. Just fascinating people and fascinating stuff. And no one explains epigenetics better than Bruce Lipton and Menos Kafatos. Aside from being a quantum physicist, he's just deeply spiritual person and communicates in such a profound way. I really lucked out with the team that we got in this film, and it was just from meeting people over the years in this space.
How interesting, and following your passion brings you to where you are today. And I just have to ask this, like, how did Mark Mincolla even get on your radar?
So I was introduced to Mark by his son, actually. I was friends with his son, and Mark was looking for a filmmaker who could tell the story of his practice, his long, dedicated practice and to healing and his systems of healing. In the hopes of opening people's understanding to the how and why of healing. And I was very interested in that. So I quickly looked him up, and he had written some books that I promptly purchased and read, which were eye-opening. Whole Health is fantastic. He had been on Dr. Oz and radio shows, and he has his own radio show and was on, local Boston news shows. He's as a holistic doctor and explaining kinesiology and food as medicine, but he was much deeper than that. And that was just something I wanted to make sure we brought out in the film, which, we did with the super consciousness. And Mark has really changed my experience of consciousness and self, and working with him has just been a profound gift. So, that I met him through his son, and I looked him up, and I was just blown away by his work, and I decided I really wanted to tell his story. And we started talking, and we spoke for 5 years, I think, on the phone. Every 2 weeks, we jumped on a call together and started to really talk about what it was that he wanted to share. And at the time, he hadn't had his health crisis. So, it soon became a story with him included, which is totally unreal. Like him included as one of his miracle stories. And it was just incredible. And I don't talk much about this, but Mark and I, we've been doing these biweekly calls for years, and I could hear the decline in his voice over time. And one day our meeting was just canceled. And then 2 weeks later, it was canceled again. And no one told me what had happened to him. And I thought, wow, maybe he doesn't want to make this film anymore. I didn't really know. And I think 2 months had passed. And then I finally heard from him again, and found out what had happened. And he was like a phoenix rising from the embers. He was just literally, after all of these pre-production talks, and then I hadn't heard from him, and he was just ready to go. And he was like, let's do it. And within a month, we had launched production. And 2 years later, here we are with the film. So
how exciting. And I know the film is released tomorrow to the general public. I mean, it's been at film festivals getting some great reviews.
Yes.
I found the film to be so empowering, and I really loved how Dr. Mancola's story was also interwoven with that. Why don't you share one of the stories that's in the film with us so that we can get a sense of what this is like?
Sure. So, I mean, there are some incredible patient stories in the film, and there's something really for everyone. I mean, I assume that everyone's going to identify potentially or have something that speaks to them about a different, each patient has a different story and a different healing. But I think that the story that resonated most with me was Diane's story. And Diane's story is all about self-love and her learning to love herself, and she overcame addiction. And that's probably the longest section, because I thought it's such an important message, because self-love is really a big key to healing, and you have to love yourself. And I know that sounds funny to say, because I don't mean it in a superficial way based on achievements. You have to really just have a deep, unconditional love for self. And, it's difficult because in our cultural ethos, we're not really set up for loving ourselves. I think that our cultural ethos breeds self-judgment or, self-contempt even. And so it was really important for me to get that across in the film, to love yourself. And Diane's story to me just perfectly encapsulates that whole message there.
That's just amazing how that happens. And I know this happens, with Mark's patients over and over and over again. And he's just getting these amazing results with everyone he meets.
Mark just has a gift. I mean, he has a way of really tapping into someone that when they come into, just really honing right in. So, he's tapping into your life force energy or your biofield to really understand where your imbalances, are precursors for disease, where your imbalances are. But also he is just this incredible, he just exudes unconditional love. So when you come into his office, he's opening that space up. And, I've got to witness appointments where people walk in with Mark, and he just has these big blue eyes, and he just goes right in. He just almost is looking right into your soul. And people often just break down and cry because they're being seen and heard, and he's holding this space for them. And it's just an incredible thing to witness, actually. And I'm not surprised at all by his results, because he's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love looking at his Facebook page because he posts, different things that talks about, met with a 68-year-old person today, and they had stage 4 cancer, and now they're cancer free. I mean, he's got just these amazing stories of miracles, and I find so fascinating. And do you know, oh my goodness, I heard that The Way of Miracles was honored with the best health awareness film for 2001. I mean, how does that make you feel as a filmmaker?
It feels incredible. I mean, for me, I hope that it will capture the attention of more people, so that more people will watch it, and we have the potential to change more lives. I'm honored by the award. But anything that will help more people watch the film, that's what brings joy to me, for sure. And this film teaches deeper philosophical truths about the cause and effect of health, and concepts such as understanding flow and balance and wholeness, and the interconnectedness of all things, and the power of self-love, and of course super consciousness. So I'm honored by that award, and I hope it allows more people to see it.
I was listening to one of the talks you did at a recent film festival, and you said while you're working on this film was working on you. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so great question. This film absolutely worked on me. I don't think you can spend thousands of hours like immersed in content, editing it, or breaking it down, and not have it reflect back into your life. So I already had a spiritual practice, but it deepened. I absolutely developed a deeper awareness of my thoughts. I started to be able to use lots of like metacognition tools, and but more importantly, I connected in with my soul self. So, and that was really all from spending a lot of time with Mark. I mean, as I said, we had these calls, and I'm so lucky to have had the time with him, by the way. He had bestowed so much wisdom and knowledge on me. And he has this way of really, as I said, locking into you and just parting a lot of wisdom. And luckily I was open to receive it. And so I learned a lot about myself. I learned about, I'll share my controlling tendencies, or the need to control an outcome. This film definitely had other ideas. I mean, when I acted in ways that were, controlling, this film just had a way, when we were making it, just had a way of like knocking me on my butt. And just, I learned to be less self-critical, less controlling. I became aware definitely of the spirit of the film. It definitely had its own spirit, and I just merely had to kind of get out of the way and become a good guardian to usher it in. And so working with these messages became it was just eye-opening, because I was like, oh, of course, oh my gosh, I'm literally working with the answers of different struggles that I was having. The answer was literally right in front of me. I'm editing this film with this incredible information, and it worked on me. It worked on me for sure.
It's just amazing. I know that there are so many synchronicities that happened as well while you're working on the film. Why don't you share a couple of those with us?
So this entire film was synchronistic. I mean, it was a film that wanted to be made. So, and I think that honestly, as soon as we named it, it took on its own energy. And maybe that's archetypal, who knows? But we had been kicking around titles, Mark and I had, and he wanted to call it maybe The Way, or The Way of Things, and it just didn't feel right to me. And so I kept putting off naming it. And Mark must have gone into one of his super conscious portals, because one day he just came back and he was like, what about the way of miracles? And I just got tingles all over my body, and I knew that was it. And so the film took on a life of its own, and things just happened to make it happen. I mean, interviews that would just fall into place, or locations that, I hadn't had, as I said, I could be, controlling or want to work out every detail, and something would totally fall apart and then just magically appear what we needed. So, just incredible things like that, it's specifically with locations or interviews, lots of the production, things just fell into place, without me trying to make it happen. So those were the synchronicities for sure.
Yeah, you can see where everything kind of dovetails so nicely together, and it's really taking root with a lot of people. I know you're getting such great feedback from the audiences. What has that been like for you?
So recently at a film festival, I got to watch the film in a theater with a large audience. And that was the first time I got to see people respond to the film live. And it was incredible, because I really didn't know what to expect. I showed it to friends and family, but in a theater with strangers, to see people just laugh and then cry and be clapping. It was, it made me emotional to watch it, because I was just so happy that people connected with it. And the people that watch it, the audience for this film has been nothing short of incredible, because their response to it, and I couldn't be happier. With, when people tell me how this film changed their life, that how they look at things, how they feel, that's a dream come true. So it's incredible to watch, and I'm so happy that people are connecting with it.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that the film was so empowering, and it really changes your perspective in regards to pretty much everything. So I really appreciated how the film came together, and I thought you really did a good job bringing that story together. And it's not just, sometimes you get movies and they're fluff. And hey, we all need fluff movies sometimes, but this had a lot of content, and I felt like I was educated watching it.
Right. Well, I definitely took that standpoint. I wanted to get information across. So, for me, it was a natural process, because I was asking the questions that I wanted to ask, that I wanted the answers to. And so that part was very natural. And I wanted to, Mark felt it was really important to share all of these stories. We kind of went going back and forth. Should we share 3 patient stories, 4 patient stories? And we ended up at 7. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how are we going to do 7 patient stories? So I had to really weave in. I wanted to weave the science and the ancient healing systems throughout these stories. So the film goes back and forth between stories that are healings that are, physical body, the emotional and spiritual, and so the film progresses throughout from almost physical to non-physical healings, and then throughout we have the scientists and luminaries that weave throughout, and it is a nutrient dense film for sure. You can probably watch it lots of times and get something new out of it each time. It's definitely meant to bring awareness. It can certainly be a reorientation for sure. I think you said it changes your perspective. It's definitely a reorientation. And you have to start where you are. So when you watch the film, and I really was trying not to put in too much information, because there's only so much before people start to glaze over, which I get, but I also, there was so much that I wanted to make sure was in there. So, and you really have to start where you are. So what message did you hear? What spoke to you? It might just be improving your diet. Maybe it's eating an anti-inflammatory diet, or alkalizing. Maybe it's understanding your food sensitivities that are triggering imbalances. maybe you're becoming aware of your dis-ease or stress or your emotional health, thoughts that replay in your mind that can trigger dis-ease. Maybe you build a relationship with your inner world, different dimensions of existence, your life force, your subtle energy, the space that we're calling the biofield, or the ultimate, you start to experience self as soul or source. So, you can come to this film and come from wherever you are. I think you can get something out of it. And I certainly have a lot more material. I could certainly cut another film together from it. It was hard to cut this one down, but, I had it mapped out. I had so many maps of it, just linear maps or big mood boards of, okay, this connects here. I want it to connect here, but I hope it's not too much for people. But so far, people seem to love it. And I love it. I do. Yeah. I love this film.
We all do. We all do. And that's, the awards it's winning, the crowds, what they're saying. And you know what, you touched on something that I'd love for you to unpack a little bit. You talked about the luminaries in this film. So why don't you share with us who's in this film and maybe, a little bit of the wisdom and insight they brought to it?
So everyone was incredible in this film, and I'm so lucky to have the team of people that agreed to be part of it. Deepak, of course, is a dear friend of mine, and he's been working in the mind-body field for forever. And he and I have so much in common in terms of our interests. So I was so happy that he agreed to be in the film and share his wisdom. As I said, Shamini's incredible scientist. She's working, basically with the biofield. She's got a book coming out in September, The Healing of the Biofield. So she's a psychoneuroimmunologist, and she's just an incredible person to have in the film, explaining that. And Bruce Lipton is incredible. As I said, no one explains epigenetics the way that he does. And I think that can be really eye-opening for people to understand what is triggering the expression of disease. That's the cause and effect there, the perceptions that we have. It's important for people to understand. And, and of course you can't understand the physical without understanding the, where that comes from. This is, it's in the immaterial. So having a quantum physicist like Menos Kafatos come in and explain the immaterial of the material. The immaterial, that's where it starts. It starts in the energy that then becomes the manifested world. So those are important concepts to get into the film so that people understand that. And who else do we have in the film? I think I went through everybody, but
yeah, you've got such a great list of people. And I know, my goodness, there must be so much, you were talking about you could build another film. I can't even imagine what's on the cutting room floor.
Some incredible content is on the cutting room floor, but it won't stay there because we're definitely going to make more content with it. And, and the Way of Miracles is a movement for sure. So aside from us releasing more content, we're closely engaging with the audience and people that want, they want more information here, they want more information there. So, Mark and I will continue to create content and courses together to continue to transform people's lives.
What a great place that is to be able to do that, to bring something to fruition that really is transforming people. Yeah, I got to ask you, was it really challenging to complete this film during the pandemic?
Most of the film was done, luckily. I definitely didn't get as much B-roll as I would have liked, because that was, patient B-roll, but so it's a little light on the B-roll, but I think it was shot beautifully. by my husband, my creative partner, Bresson. So he did a beautiful job filming, and it was basically just a 2-man crew. The two of us shot the whole thing, and so we were able to keep pretty nimble and move through. And even during the pandemic, we were able to still meet with patients and practice social distancing and wear masks and still get the content that we needed. And I'm really happy with the film. I'm really proud of it. I love it, and we weren't going to be stopped by the pandemic, so we got it out.
Yeah, I mean, it really does have a life of its own. You can tell that it was wanting to come out, especially at this time. I think right now people are so looking for some type of miracle to come into their life.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the message of this film, and I think it's an incredible one. So we go through what I consider to be, but just basic cause and effect of illness. And I'm not shy about saying I don't think that the Western medical world does a great job with just some basic cause and effect of illness. So, but the Western medicine absolutely has its place. We need intervention medicine in acute situations, but you're learning preventative tools in this film, which can also be implemented in a health crisis. But these are tools to best manage the balance of your life force energy or your beingness. And in this film, you're made aware of these tools. And, but ultimately, the message, the deeper message, and maybe this is something that people are starved for or want to know, but don't really know they want to know, who knows? But ultimately, the big message is that we are immortal beings and we don't have a soul. We are a soul. And, what I would love for audiences to take away from the film is that they understand that they are incredibly powerful creators and that they are their own miracle makers. And that's the message of this. And I think that I think the message is a real gift.
So you talk about the message for the film. Is that one of the overall messages that really brings, that you're really bringing to light?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Mark came to me and he said, I've had a career in healing. He's devoted his life to it. He's an incredible man. And he wanted to bestow this wisdom for people so that you don't feel like a victim, so that you don't feel like you are the label maybe of your disease. A lot of people get caught up and identify with their illness or being sick. And he wanted for people to have a re-identification of self and to really come from a place of power and to learn to take responsibility in the process of their health and to be empowered. And he wanted to, he says like it's time that we start engaging in the miracle making process, that we realize we are the miracle makers. So it's not Mark that's making the miracles, it's you that's making the miracles. And he's just had such a long practice where he has created this system where you can become a miracle maker. And so that's what this film is sharing.
Do you think this film offers a new way of for people to view consciousness?
So I'm not sure if it's a new way. I'd say it's the way, or, it's definitely, we did our best to reveal deep truths in this film, which, the deep truths, they don't have their roots in the material existence. In fact, material existence has its roots in the deep truths, if that makes sense. So, Mark throughout his career he's been devoted to being a healer and has developed his systems. And it's really opening up one of these spaces or this space of consciousness, higher consciousness, that opens the space for love, unconditional love. And that's where healing happens. And that's the beautiful work. So, this is Mark's approach, but it's rooted in these deeper truths.
So, what do you want audiences to take away from the film?
Definitely definitely for them to be empowered. Definitely for them to be empowered, for them to walk away and, even if it's however small, for people to walk away feeling empowered and for people to want to get involved with their own selves in a deeper level and to realize that they're miracle makers. I mean, that's the message. That's the message.
Yeah, the overall message is that we can create our own miracles. And how empowering is that?
Yeah, I mean, that is that's the ultimate. I mean, there's nothing more to say. It's the ultimate. It's the ultimate. And, I think that's tough. That can be tough for people to get to. Again, I don't think that our cultural ethos is really set up for that. So, there is some inquiry involved. I mean, I think people have to do some active inquiry in their lives. Certainly having a practice, learning, when you watch the film, you certainly, there were things that I would love to have gone into more, but having a practice, having a daily practice, or just a consistent practice in your life where you are building a relationship with your inner world, if that makes sense. You basically are becoming you're doing inner laboratory work. You're becoming a living laboratory, as I'd like to say. So, it's eating right and it's taking care of yourself and loving yourself. But, Mark talks about, there's the inner world and the outer world, and how many of us are aware of the inner world and how many of us build a relationship with that space and understand things that are more subtle, like flow and balance and harmony and peace and surrender, and things that create ease in our system and flow in our system. And, this is it's a way of being. It's a way of being.
Oh, the way of being. What a perfect place to be. I know that Mark shares about that in the book, in the film, and also expands on that and how it relates to consciousness. And my goodness, I don't want to share too much because I found it to be quite impactful. I'm sure a lot of people are asking, okay, how do I order the film? Where can I get it? How can I stream it? Where is it at? So where can we get it?
Absolutely. So you can go right to thewayofmiracles.com. That's where everything is housed. You can sign up for the newsletter there and to learn about upcoming events or screeners and upcoming courses. But that from thewayofmiracles.com is where you can rent or purchase the film. It's available for streaming on the site. You can also purchase a DVD copy if you have a DVD player, and everything's on the site. And you can also get the companion book, The Way of Miracles, on the website as well.
How exciting is that? Because I know that while the film goes into some great detail, the book does as well. And so they really do work together so nicely.
Yeah, they really do. They touch on similar things, but the book goes more in depth into specific practices, principles, tenets, and the film has more of the patient stories, and then the how and why this science works. The how and the why, and also, of course, brings in ancient healing systems and stuff. So they are similar in some ways, but different in other ways, and so they are great companions of each other.
So if someone, I know you have lots of churches and groups that are reaching out to you, and even events, I've heard that lots of conferences are doing this too, where they want to do a screening. How do they go about that?
Again, they can just go right to the website, and there's a button requesting information on screenings. There's an email you can reach out, and depending on your audience, you can also create a discussion panel around it, depending on your unique audience and what you're looking for. But you can certainly request information on screenings, and we can get something set up within your community.
My goodness, Christina, it's been such an honor to spend this time with you. Why don't you share not only the Way of Miracles website again, but also your production company?
The website is thewayofmiracles.com, and my production company is 31 Creative.
Another good place to go if you're thinking about contacting somebody for a film. Well, Christina, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Christina. It is such an honor to spend this time with you. I always enjoy the time we get to spend together. I feel that I learn a lot, and I'm sure that our listeners are real excited about The Way of Miracles. Again, if you'd like to check out The Way of Miracles film, you can at thewayofmiracles.com for more information. There you'll find out information on the book as well, The Way of Miracles, Accessing Your Super Consciousness, which is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if they don't have it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, you can get that on Kindle. If you'd like to connect with Dr. Mincolla, you can at markmincolla.com for more information. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. Before we go, just a reminder, you've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.